Thank you for being here this morning for the presentations. And I would also like to thank Mr. Tigno for reading my mind. With the number of things I'm going to say that would resonate these points that you outlined. It's good to see such, what is the term, concordance in the world of dissonance. So what I'm doing here, I'm basically running through this slide, and I'll talk as I show, so it will be more like a show and tell. So the key problematic, I'm a sociologist, and I have to use some big words to impress my students and my audience. So problematic is a big word, and the problematic is to harmonize the interests of the labor-sending countries with those of labor-receiving countries. Because their interests are different but complementary. So we need to focus on complementarity, and we have to find a way of how to do that. First, is such harmonization possible in an asymmetrical world? I mean, we all know that the world is unequal, asymmetrical, societies are asymmetrical, and how to do this? That's the question, million-dollar question. So then towards the end of this presentation, I reflect on a framework to understand migration, labor migration, and to understand, this sort of synthesis and this sort of complementarity that can be achieved. And this is like, it's unheard of. Sociologists borrowing from international relations theories. I mean, Raymond Aron made fun of international relations theory. They said, what theory? But because they rely on sociology, and outmoded sociological theories like Pearsonian, functionalism, system theory, and international relations are very proud to borrow theories that sociologists have jumped, discarded. So I make fun of my IR friends. I said,
excuse me, there are two IR people here.
Yeah, I make fun of them. But today the table is turned, and I borrow from IR theory. They're making sense. Realism, idealism. At one point I used to laugh about it, but now I think they make sense. And they make sense in terms of understanding the relationship between labor-sending and labor-receiving countries. Now first, I will just go through very quickly because this is something that all of you know, and I just want to refresh your memory by running through these issues. So one is, what is globalization or migration mean? We talk about globalization and migration. The whole debate over migration as a force of development or not, political economy and migration, and the human rights discourse in migration. I bring in a little bit of Richard Florida creative class because I'm involved in a research project now on that high-end migration in UAE. And then the key sociological question of migration and state belonging. Where do we belong? Why do I belong? Bangladesh, Singapore, US, wherever, Abu Dhabi. So the definitions, again, I will not bore with you definition. Migration definition is important, and we all know what it is. Basically movement of people from one country to another. If it is international, it can be internal, it can be intercontinental. And then the state migration today, the 240 million people live outside of countries that are born. So, that's a huge number, and this number is going to increase. It has already increased remarkably from 2005 when it was 191 million, and by 2050 it could reach over 400 billion. So this is going to be a future staple for social scientists to study migration. Migration is going to be the next big thing in academic research. Okay? And we also know the world is uneven, asymmetrical, politically, economically, and so on, and how to factor that in understanding the interconnectedness of globalization and migration. So labor migration, again, I borrowed from International Organization for Migration, common cross-border movement for the purpose of employment in a foreign country. It's very obvious, and so on, right? The numbers that are a source of concern, and I jumped into the topic, because if you leave, one of the things we need to do is that we need to understand the other's point of view. If it is interpersonal relationship, that would help. If you try to understand the other's perspective rather than your own. I talk to my Emirati students, and they say, look, we go to Dubai, go to a shopping mall, and suddenly say, where are we? Is it my country? Who are these people? And they look at themselves, two Emirati women in an ocean of 1 million foreigners in a shopping mall. I'm just exaggerating a bit. But you see that kind of proportion. So they get frightened. They say, no, we quickly leave because where are we? So the extent, 88.5%, and that would be an underestimate. It would be 90%. 90%. And that's why there is no public information. It's not easily available. No one wants to talk about it. This, it's so skewed. So people say 80-20, which is just a catch phrase, and it has happened because of government migration, individuals, in the kafil system, they could sponsor and so on. And then there's a growing rise in unemployment in the UAE, local people. And again, we don't have concrete data, that's why I didn't put any data, but some people estimate 18% unemployment. So this is a situation where the government is very worried, what to do about it, how to, and again, economically it is to the advantage of UAE to have all the foreign migrants, but politically it's becoming liability. So it's a classic contradiction between economic rationality and political expedience or convenience. Okay, there are some numbers in India, over 1.1 million, and then you put together Pakistan and Bangladesh, another 1.5 million, Jordan, Philippines, Sri Lanka. So you can see the numbers, a huge number of migrant workers working in the United Arab Emirates, over 90%, almost 90%. And then I try to link migration with globalization and, drawing from Upper Durai, drawing from Robertson, look at globalization as flows, not as a structured relationship. It's very flexible flows of capital and flows of labor. These are the two mainstays of economic activity, since Marx and so on. And we have information flow, ideas flow, emotional flow, etc. And now sociologists are talking about mobile society. So all these things fit into this framework. Now, one of the key issues that I think was outlined in the previous presentation is the relationship between globalization and the nation state. And I want to take some credit because I have been thinking about this issue for quite some time. If you Google me, you'll see I wrote a paper on the subject a long time ago. That where does nation state stand? There was a famous Japanese management guru who said, borderless world, the state is becoming irrelevant. He said, we think, that is nonsense. The state is gaining grounds to pursue the process of globalization. So globalization and state, they're not standing at each other's path, they're very complementary. It's a complex process and we need to understand that in some instances globalization weakens the state and in other instances it strengthens the state. Now, again, what is the state? You know that as students of sociology and political science. So look at Weberian kind of realism theory of the state. Now the functions of the state, national security. Now this is very much on the agenda of UAE that we need to protect. All societies need to protect national security. In India, there's a big issue with cross-border irregular migrants coming from Nepal and Bangladesh does not want to admit that Bangladesh is going to India. So it becomes a national security issue. And then the government has to provide some kind of welfare to people, and sometimes that welfare is redistributed. On the plane I was reading Financial Times, and in England now they are worried that very soon Romanians would be coming to England because of the adjustment in European Union policies. So even as developed country is sometimes worried about the sharing of welfare benefits, etc. So the sovereignty issue that was raised in the previous presentation, this ultimate sole authority of the state. But then we look at the state, and this is very interesting, that we need to look at the state as value. Because when you look at the state, we have the immediate assumption that the state is a solid rock. It's not a solid rock. In some situation, it melts away. I mean, look at Mali today. The state has almost melted away. So you have that stateness. The state becomes, this is not my word. A long time ago, a political scientist wrote a fascinating paper called State as a Value. We talked about strong state, weak state, hard state, soft state. And soft state is basically a highly corrupt state. And hard state is Singapore. No corruption, heavy punishment, and high corruption, no punishment, which is opposite, and you see that in Bangladesh and all. Okay? State effectiveness is very important. Fighting corruption, these are important things in terms of migration management, migration governance that I'm coming to. So again, I know this whole idea of power as a state, myth of power as a state, and here on my side I'm Linda Wise, and I have some very top-notch scientists that come to this. So there's a book by Saskia Sasenko, Losing Control, but she's not saying that the state is losing control. That she raises the problematic, but the state is not losing control. State controls over citizenship. The state controls over who goes, who lives, who stays in the control over migration. But then, at the same time, there is unequal bargaining powers of the states. Okay? Now the discourse, and again, I had a little sort of experience with ILO, some project, and I completely disagree with ILO, because their main concern is human rights. In UAE, workers are not unionized. I said, do you realize the workers come from countries where they have never heard of unions? Why do you want to? Look at the immediate conditions and how bad the situation is, and you're thinking of organizing them into trade unions in a country where even D of democracy doesn't exist. Come on, So people who live in Geneva in highly air-conditioned, nice offices, they think the whole world should be Switzerland. The world is not Switzerland, So I'm not saying that we should give up on the rights. We need to navigate this in a very, very careful way. Okay? And this is a point that Zolberg mentioned. Wanted but not welcome. And I copied that for a title of my own paper. I like that because this is exactly the situation that in UAE, in Qatar, in the Gulf, workers are wanted, but they're not welcome. That's the dilemma. Sometimes we have to live with that. They want us, but they don't like us. So what to do? And we want that job. What to do? Then the human rights discourse. ILO has the cost of coercion and so on and so forth, which is fine. The decent work is fine. There's no question about it. But I put all these things in the domain of idealism. So yes, we have to combine idealism with realism. Okay? And then the Human Rights Watch, based in New York, published some scathing criticisms of UAE, the island of happiness, and so on and so forth. And they wrote those reports on UAE. What did UAE do? UAE invited them. Then why don't you come and tell us what's wrong with us and how can we improve the situation? And I'm coming back to that. I think that's a very enlightened policy, stemming from a sense of realism. Okay? BBC documentary you can watch. So UAE is complying in a certain sense that they're saying, okay, human trafficking is a big problem, let's fight it. And they put in huge amount of money to fight human trafficking, and they have achieved some success, and their success has been recognized by Human Rights Watch and other institutions, international institutions. Okay, now the 3 Ds of labor migration, not the dirty, all that. The demography, which was mentioned, strikingly development, and I picked up this idea from Richard Florida's talk recently, that people look for a decent place. I had a long conversation with a Filipino woman working in a travel agency in Abu Dhabi, and she said that there's so much security in Abu Dhabi compared to Philippines, that I can walk home at night, middle of the night, and absolutely absolutely no environment of fear. I don't have that luxury in Manila. And I think that's very important for countries like Bangladesh, Pakistan. There's no security. You go to a mosque and you don't come back. You get blown off, right? And UAE provides that security. So that's, people like that. So it's not always income. I tell you, it's not always income. It's the sense of security that's extremely important. So in that sense, many of the migrant destinations, despite the exploitation, despite the violation of rights and so on, they provide, relatively speaking, from the migrant's point of view. From my point of view, I'm also a migrant, but in a certain sense, a decent place. Migration as a force of development, of course, it goes back to Lord Keynes. And then we look at the recent data, 2012, 405 billion. That's a huge amount of money. Bangladesh has made 14 billion last year, 14.7 billion. That's a significant amount of money for Bangladesh, much more than FDI, foreign assistance combined, and so on. And then, which is not often mentioned, is social remittance. The non-economic remittance that comes, through migration, returning laborers, and others, and we see that in Bangladesh, in India, in Taiwan, everywhere, a huge amount of social remittance in the last 20, 30 years. This is just a quick list. You can see how this has gone up. Mexico, Philippines, 24 billion, we saw that in the previous presentation, China, India. So these are the top 10 countries. Here I have 9 and because of lack of space. But you can see, that's the trend that many of these so-called third world countries are reaping the benefit of the global migration and the remittance. And then now I come to migration governance. Okay, how to regulate or promote? So is it a question of regulation or promotion? And that's the big issue. It should be both. So regulation is the main concern of the labor sending countries. That we want to make sure, receiving country like UAE, because it's overwhelmed by a number of migrants, so it wants to control, it wants skilled migrants rather than unskilled, educated rather than uneducated. And countries like Bangladesh we want to promote, because this is, a quick way of earning revenues and not doing anything. So government can look pretty and do nothing, and allow, promote sending migrants. You go overseas, and just leave them alone. Which is a kind of laissez-faire approach, and it's working. So what to do about it, So it's a huge political issue. Every time we hear that migrants are being sent back from UAE, it becomes a big issue in Bangladesh. And the opposition says, look, we told you this government is very bad, it's no good. Now the migrants are coming back. And the migrants are coming back because there is an economic slowdown in UAE, and the government cannot even explain what's going on. They take the blame. Yeah, it's our president. So that's going on. And again, the countries are becoming much more mixed. We have labor sending, labor receiving. But you have countries, even India is both labor receiving and labor sending. Labor receiving in an irregular way from Bangladesh and Nepal, large number of workforce going there. But they are also exporting a huge number of workers coming from Kerala and other regions. So from migration governance, we go to what I call, and I think I can take a patent on this, because I haven't seen anyone using that. And in order to get the patent, I quickly wrote a newspaper article on that, migration diplomacy. So one is, the governance aspect is Nasra Shah. I borrowed that from a very well-known migration specialist based in Kuwait. And she talked about regulation, facilitation, protection, and I think I probably had reintegration. So that's very important. When the migrants come back, what happens? You need to take that into account. So the threefold thing, migration, regulation, and development, I think they're all interconnected. We need to define or redefine governance in such a way that governance is more than just policy making. So again, to move on very quickly, so the migration process, migration diplomacy, thank you. Migration diplomacy began in Colombo in 2003. Not in an original sense. There were some issues that being debated, discussed in Europe for quite some time. But in Asian context, I think it was the first time that countries, labor-sending countries, sat together and followed by meetings in 2004 in Manila. But 2005 Bali meeting was very interesting because they invited labor-receiving countries. First time, labor-sending, labor-receiving countries sat across the table and discussed, okay, what can be done. But remember, these are officials. 2005 Bali. Okay? And then 2008, so there was a big hiatus, 3 years, 2008, they met in Abu Dhabi. And I tell you, I was there in 2008. I was in Bangladesh, I flew back on my own just to be part of that. And at that time I worked briefly for this ILO little project for which I was not paid. Honestly, because we disagreed on the final report. They didn't pay me, but they gave me a tag and I could go into the dialogue. So that was very good. So in that dialogue, I noticed that it's not just government officials. So this is the expansion of governance. Government representatives, the ministers, the embassy officials, Bangladeshi embassy officials were absolutely punctual when it came to dinner. In discussions, I didn't find them. They were not around. I'm sure they had more important things to do in their own offices. But NGO, my friends from Bangladesh, migrant NGOs, they came, they attended all the sessions very diligently, and I met Human Rights Watch representatives from New York. She came and I had a conversation. So I said, look, they're opening up. Okay, you have a problem, we're doing something wrong, come and tell us, let's talk about it. So Human Rights Watch representatives came from New York, so NGO, academics, and government officials. So they were talking about 3 legs. I said, look, you need one more leg. So in my brief comment, I said, what about representatives of the labor? So that would complete the whole process, you see. Now, they have not gone there yet, but the three-pronged approach, NGO, government, academic, I think that's a huge development that took place in 2008 Abu Dhabi dialogue. Okay, so by international regime, I'm really thinking of more and more cooperation, more and more integration of policies to emphasize complementarity and forget, the discrepancies and so on and so forth. So from Colombo process, which we have moved to Abu Dhabi process, so these are more sort of descriptions of what happened and so on and so forth to other countries. But then I quickly go to the more recent situation, just by way of conclusion. Like in August, there was a big rumor in Abu Dhabi circle that UAE government has banned, and this is a word that most Bangladeshi informants told me, Bangladesh immigration, and I checked newspapers, I talked to officials, I said, no, there's no ban. The phrases were used like halting, stopping, all sorts of things. But then I looked at, okay, what's the situation in Bangladesh, and I find the situation was pretty bad. 85% drop from August to September. In September, only 2,000 new workers went to UAE, compared to 15,000 in August. So obviously something was going on. And then I tried to find out what's going on. They discovered a huge number of irregular, that is undocumented, Bangladeshi workers in UAE. Not that Bangladeshi, but Bangladeshi is sort of overrepresented there. This is how Bangladeshi migrants have been going over to Middle East and other countries like North Africa and Singapore. So these are large numbers, 240,000, huge number of Bangladeshis are born in 2012. Again, so once UAE stops, halts, whatever the phrase is, Bangladeshi migrants, Bangladeshi officials begin to talk and try to talk, and they have hardly any access. And then I said, look, we are living in a very asymmetrical world. And you simply look at this chart, look at this chart. I mean, look at per capita income. This is the 2003 World Bank report, HDR. 40,000 US dollars versus 780. So why do they talk, They not even talk to you, So we really need to navigate very carefully. We can't say, look, this is a right, give us jobs. No, it's not a right way. But there are many other countries waiting to export their labor. Burma is an example. Nepal is another example. And of course, Ethiopia and other African countries are waiting. So we need to navigate very carefully how to deal with or how to bridge this this asymmetrical world. And this is the last 1 minute. Bangladesh signed in November a very interesting agreement with Malaysia. And Malaysia 4 years ago banned Bangladeshi migrants, again because of high number of illegal Bangladeshis. And they go from Thailand, they go by boat, they go from various, highly creative doing that. But finally, in November, government to government negotiation. They cut out the middleman, they cut out the highly exploitative, you can see the savings on the part of cost of migration and so on is huge for Bangladeshis. And in my recent discussions with some Iraqis, they want me to write a report on this, and they're interested in looking into this government to government. And then this is something I will skip today, but in a question answer, that what kind of framework I have in mind, and then I will skip that, but I will come back to that. But basically, I'm saying that we have to have more level-headed thinking. We need to mix realism with idealism. Thank you very much.